Clifford, confirm that live stream's now working.
It is, Chair. Thank you.
I believe from communications had earlier today, we may have at least one member of the public watching us. Hopefully many more. This is the first physical public committee meeting taking place at the Town Hall. And following the virtual meeting set up was allowed, we're going forward, all meetings will be convened at the Town Hall, though at the present times only members of the committee physically will be attending physically. The meeting is going to continue to be live streamed. The live stream's been activated and we're now in operation. So if I could ask Clifford to read the protocol.
Thank you, Chair. If I could advise members that although we are in a physical meeting, officers are attending virtually, and the same rules as always in terms of virtual meetings will apply to this physical meeting. So if I could ask all members and officers only to speak when invited to by the Chair. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand, and that's for members in the chamber, and also for officers to use the indication button on the screen to speak. Please, can you ensure that your mics are muted when you're not speaking? And that's in terms of the officers joining virtually. If you have any difficulties technically, if you use the chat side rule as before, and our IT person, Mario, will attempt to assist you if there are any difficulties. If you are referring to a specific page number, picture or diagram, please could you very clearly state which the paragraph or diagram or appendix that you are referring to. If please do not use the chat function for any other issue apart from technical issues. And if there is any persistent or bad behaviour, the individual will still be removed from the proceedings. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The press and public will be asked to leave the proceedings after the public business if there is any requirement to consider those items. Yes, just a couple of things. First of all, welcome Helen Woodland, who's our Director of Adults Health and Integration. I think it's the first time she's arrived and is attending the meeting virtually tonight, so welcome. If officers could give introductions as they speak, but I'll ask the members present to just introduce themselves now. My name is Councillor Rob Chapman. I am Cabinet Member for Finance and Chair of the Cabinet Procurement and Insourcing meeting. Councillor Bramble.
Good evening, Councillor Bramble, Deputy Mayor and Cabinet Member for Education, Children's Social Care and Young People.
Councillor Chris Kennedy, Cabinet Member for Health, Adult Social Care and Leisure.
And Councillor Caroline Woodley has given her apologies for lateness, and I expect her to join me. Sorry? Oh, yes. Rasim, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Chair. Rasim Ajilore, and I'm the Head of Procurement for the Council. Thank you.
And
Andrew Spratt, Government Services Team.
Okay, thank you all. So if we could start item one is to note the appointment of the Chair of the Cabinet Procurement and Insourcing Committee for the municipal year.
Yes, the Council at its annual meeting on the 27th of April appointed its committees and subcommittees, and Cabinet was appointed and the membership of the Cabinet Procurement and Insourcing Committee was confirmed. The Chair of the Cabinet Procurement and Insourcing Committee for the municipal year 21-22 is Councillor Chapman. Thank you.
Okay, so I think you just note that, do we?
Yes, Chair.
Item 2, to note the change of the title in terms of reference to the Cabinet Procurement and Insourcing Committee. And I just wanted to say, just a few minutes to talk a little bit about the change of name and the new terms of reference, which brings in particularly the reference to insourcing into the title and terms of reference of our committee. And this is both symbolic to represent the importance of that to us, but very real in terms of what the business of this committee is in looking at our insourcing agenda and making that central to all the council's work on procurement. The council, the manifesto that we were elected on as Labour councillors says we will continue to deliver high quality service for residents, and we will review all outsourced services with a view to bring them in-house, as well as looking at a new form of employee ownership and co-ops where this is possible. We do all this obviously with the whole interest of the council at once. We look also, it's important we ensure value for money, and it's important we continue to ensure good quality services are procured and delivered. And I think it's important to start this meeting with reference to those changes, and I hope members will forgive me a few seconds for drawing attention to that. But it really is a vital part of our agenda. All right. So can we note the change of title in terms of reference, please?
Noted.
Okay, apologies for absence, there are none now. There are no items of urgent business I'm aware of.
No, Chair.
Can we put any declarations of interest from members?
No, Chair.
No declarations of interest. All right. No, I think no representation to conduct any business in private unless they relate to the exempt items on the. No deputations.
Okay.
So item 8, unrestricted minutes of the Cabinet Procurement Committee on the 12th of April 21. Can we, I don't propose to go through them all, but can I just ask any corrections to those?
No, Chair.
No, Chair.
Can we agree the unrestricted minutes of the 17th of April, the 12th of April?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. Item 9, integrated children and young people's wellbeing service. So I think Timothy Lee is going to introduce the report. Mr. Lee.
Hi, it's actually I'm in attendance, but it's actually Amy Wilkinson as a senior member from Public Health who's going to present the report.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Amy Wilkinson. I'm the Integrated Commissioning Workstream Director for Children, Young People, Maternity and Families. And this report here seeks approval to award an extension of 4 contracts that deliver statutory responsibilities in terms of public health that will take us up to August the 31st, 2023. This is a variation for exceptional times. Our larger plan is to design and recommission an integrated health and wellbeing service across the system for 0 to 25-year-olds. In order to do that, we need to extend 4 of the 10 contracts that are linked to that, and this seeks approval for that.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from members? Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to thank officers for their work on this. Chair, they also met in advance of presentation of this paper and submission of this paper to this committee with myself, Councillor Woodley, Deputy Mayor Bramble, to take us through the implications of, particularly I would highlight legal implications, just reassuring us that we could actually extend these contracts and providing us with the necessary reassurance. So I thank officers for their work, and to that extent, Chair, the 3 members of your committee have had much earlier and more detailed sight and have had the opportunity to question officers about this paper, which you haven't had, Chair.
Okay, well.
That's why we're happy.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the members?
No, only Chair, only to echo the of Councillor Kennedy, and to also offer my thanks to officers for taking the time to go through the matter in grave detail with us as members. Thank you. Okay,
I had a couple of quick questions, which I'll address the officers, though the members might have something to say about them. On 6.3, in relation to the savings, we're saying that any savings will be delivered through negotiation with the existing providers. I just wondered, given obviously there are lots of important things about this contract, but we are focusing on savings as well at the moment. If you could say a bit more about that, particularly, I mean, because they're mostly contracts which have been brought together in a way, as I understand it, some of which have been running already, and whether there's been opportunity so far to identify savings as well as in the future.
Yep, sure, I can take that. So we actually commissioned these services for the first time in 2014 following the transition of public health into the local authority, and there have been a significant amount of savings, over 1.5 million from the health visitor contract since that time. So we've got a number of savings articulated as part of the longer term plan for the full 0 to 25 recommissioning, but in the short term, these 4 contracts are not in line for savings over the next 18 months.
Okay. What's that? I had a similar question about 7.2, about procuring for a better society in terms of looking for opportunity for training opportunities and apprentices. Have again, you know, in running them so far, have we been able to identify much in that area, or is that in the future as well?
So we do have a number of student sort of apprenticeships, preceptorship programs delivered through the health visiting service and through the services that are delivering these contracts. And we would really like to move that forward over the next couple of years, and we'll work closely also with the CCG around our trainees and apprentices and how we can look at that more carefully.
Okay. Are there any other comments or questions from members? So, in that case, can I move the recommendations as set out in the report? So we're not in the brief. Back on paper.
It's the second page. Yeah.
So agree the recommendation, agree to award the contracts as set out in 3.1.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you very much. So if we can move to item 10, housing related support services, floating support service. I think it's, I'm not sure who's going to introduce this. Is it Beverly Gachette or Genève Jalil? I'm not sure. But anyway, whoever it is, please introduce the report.
Hi, I'm Beverly Gachette, the Strategic Commissioner for Mental Health and Prevention in Adult Commissioning. So we have submitted a business case to the committee, setting out our rationale for delivering efficiencies against the floating support contracts currently delivered by Riverside Housing Group, and asking the committee to approve these efficiencies so that we can work with the provider to implement the service model within the new annual budget. I'm assuming that the committee has had sight of the business case, and I would like to answer any questions, unless, Zainab, there's anything that you wanted to pick up specifically.
Okay.
In the report, so we'll take questions.
Sorry, I missed that completely.
Sorry, I was just saying it's all in the report, so it's probably better to move to questions. Apologies, Chair.
Who was that? Sorry.
That was Zainab.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Is there any questions or comments from members? Councillor Kennedy.
By way of comment, Chair, firstly, my thanks to officers for their hard work on this, and I would draw your attention, Chair, and colleagues' attention to the exempt Appendix A, which provides, I think, compelling justification for the work that has been done and the necessity of bringing it forward. Obviously, as we're still in part 1, I shan't draw attention to any specific figures in there.
Okay. Right. So I don't think we need to go through formal exclusion at this stage unless we're going to discuss it or ask questions on it.
Unless members wish to discuss it in part 2.
Yeah, but we can come back to it in part 2 if we need to. Okay. Yeah, thank you very much for the report, and I'll echo everything Councillor Kennedy. Sorry, does any other member wanted to say or question? Thank you very much, Councillor Kennedy, and I echo completely the thanks for the report. I did have Yeah, just go, I was in the finance comments actually, but it's just, the savings are very welcome, but a couple of, can we perhaps just, first of all ask about the nation savings? I mean, as I understand it, the main thing we've done here is deal with the pricing of the contract, in that, you know, we thought we were out of line with what others were paying, and now that's been resolved. Are there any other factors in the savings in terms of the, you know, the nature of the service that's been looked at in this?
I think there is one thing that I'd like to draw your attention to. When we commissioned the service initially, we asked for the provider to deliver an assistive technology pilot, but throughout the pandemic, and as we shifted onto more virtual, more digital working, and we saw the advancements that the majority of our providers had experienced with, you know, working remotely with their service users, we realized that an AT pilot, the need for that had kind of been superseded through the creativity of all of our providers, not least of which is Riverside Housing. And also, yes, you're right, we looked at the rest of the market. We brought the unit costs in line with the rest of the market. And also, I think the way that we are now structuring the delivery, so the way that we measure capacity has shifted. Originally, we were looking at, if I can call it, footfall annually, so who had accessed the service at the end of the year. But because the nature of the service is, it's mixed, so you have brief interventions, and when I say brief, I mean 6 to 8 weeks interventions alongside more longer term. It made sense that we shifted that annual footfall to what the capacity would be at any one time. And what that means for us, it means actually greater capacity, which I know it sounds counterintuitive if you're reducing the spend. But yeah, it's the way that you measure, the metrics that you use, the way that you're looking at delivery. So I think for me, those feel like the biggest shifts, but I don't know, you might have noticed something else, and I'm happy to clarify.
Okay. Yeah. I just in 8.2 in the report, it says the impact on service provision is minimal. What do we mean by minimal? I suppose is there any change that that's significant that we should note at all?
Staffing levels.
Staffing
levels, yeah.
And we still think that the impact of the service is minimal.
Absolutely.
Great, that's good. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Well, can I thank officers once again for the report, and it's welcome, and ask members to draw members' attention to the recommendation at 3, which is that the Cabinet Procurement and Sourcing Committee authorise efficiencies as set out in the report. We're happy to do that?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Thank you too for the presentation. So we can move on to item 11. The contract for the provision of statutory testing, inspection and repair and maintenance service on update on progression of long-term corporate maintenance strategy. Thanks for this. It's a very long report, and it was, for various reasons, some of which I know about, late. So it's quite difficult for members to sort of grasp all this. I mean, in an ideal world, I think we might have asked it to be deferred to next month, but my understanding is the timetable doesn't really allow for that. So anyway, if I ask you just to introduce it first, and then we'll have some questions on it. And it's Chris Pritchard or Nick going to introduce it?
I'll do that.
All right.
Chris Pritchard, Director of Property.
Welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, apologies again for the lateness of the report. So the purpose of the report is to seek the committee's authority to issue 10 documents for a new contract for the provision of maintenance services to the Crown Commercial Services Framework. It is a long report. It goes into some detail around what we're trying to achieve in doing that. And although nothing is deviating from the updates that we've provided in the past, it sets out also an update on what we're doing in terms of preparing ourselves to move closer to the mixed economy that the council is seeking, mixed economy of insourced and outsourced services. So there's a little more to it than simply explaining that we're going to this particular framework and the reasons why. I can give more explanation if you wish, or perhaps it's better if I leave it open to specific questions.
Okay. Well, can I ask if members of the committee have questions or comments? Councillor Kennedy.
From the timeline, Chris, it looks like this is coming back to us, isn't it? Once we have a preferred bidder, is that right?
Yes, my colleague Nick will correct me if I'm wrong, but actually all we want an authority for tonight is to actually issue the tender documents, and we will have to then go through a competitive process before we know exactly what we've got to choose between, and for certain whether what we've been offered is going to meet our aspirations. That's not to say I have any doubts that we'll find anybody. This particular framework offers a good spread of providers of different types, and we are looking forward to a healthy competition.
Thank you, Chair. So I think hopefully we can look forward as a committee to a paper that comes to us in a more timely fashion next time and allows us to properly scrutinise at that stage.
Yes, indeed.
Any other questions or comments from members? Yeah, if I could ask, it's a long report, and as just been pointed out, it will come back to us, I guess, later on for further discussion on it. Just going back to the conversations we've had about insourcing until both at, I think, the meeting before last when we had a general paper and on other occasions, when we talked about the possibility that while some of these services are unlikely to be suitable for insourcing because of their very specialist and technical nature, there are other services within this that one would think might well be suitable. And we're looking at awarding a 5-year contract with a 2-year extension. And I'm just wondering how you, at the same time as looking at your internal changes that will enable insourcing to be more realistic, and looking at the possibility of doing that. I'm just saying, are we saying we're going to have to wait 5 years before we can move on this, or will there be opportunities to take up, to move forward on insourcing if we identify how we can do that before then?
Well, the way we're planning to run this is,
hope you'll follow that.
Start with this. There are good reasons for offering a 5-year contract as opposed to a short-term contract. For one thing, we need to recruit a provider that will invest in the service that they're going to give us, and if we can offer them 5 years, then they have a much easier business case there. And I think in the past where we've tried, where the market, not just us, have tried shorter term contracts with the possibility for extension of say 3 years plus another year, then there's been some caution, I think, in making those investments up front, notwithstanding you would hope the contractor had the conviction that it was going to win that extension based on its performance. So I think evidence and good sense suggests that we should offer a good length of contract. There's no obligation on us to extend it beyond the 5 years. There are elements of that contract which are not exclusive as well, such as the right to deliver capital projects. The contractor will have to tender for that in each case. But we do need a stable basis from which they can perform the statutory services that we require to keep up our residents and our occupiers safe in our buildings. What we are doing meanwhile, though, is commencing an internal recruitment drive to build our own internal capacity, so that we will be in a position from where we can first of all define more clearly what services within Hackney can be insourced practically, and to build our own internal infrastructure, which is largely focused around data and management of that data and interpreting that data and converting it into useful decision-making information. So we have to build an internal client team, if you like, and an internal resource from which will be a stable platform from which we can look ahead to insourcing, and upon which we can build the resource required to insource the various services if they're decided upon. And there are services where elements of the service where you would start your review, but at the moment we've got a big task in actually recruiting the sort of permanent team we need to start that work.
Okay. I think when we had the discussion in general terms, I think it was 2 committees ago now, we asked for sort of clearer view on all that work that you're required to do to get to a situation where you consider where you could work on these things seriously. I think it would still, from my perspective anyway, it would still be helpful to see that in the future. But, so perhaps we can pick up that either as a separate item or next time. Just to, what are the steps and when do you expect to do them by? When can we start seriously looking at which services we might be able to source in house, and which services we'll never be able to?
Yeah, and I acknowledge that.
I can't see it, so I can't.
I acknowledge that's absolutely pertinent, Chair. I need to get these resources in so that we can actually come up with a realistic timetable there that is based on our own capacity. So we have to have that capacity first, and then from there we can talk with some conviction about how we get these things into a program and rolling.
Do you know when you? I mean, I think I asked this before, but when you expect to be able to be in that position?
Well, at the moment, I hesitate to quote dates.
No. Sorry, I think it's for information at this stage. We are not going to write it down as a commitment.
It's going to
recognising all sorts of other troubles,
Okay. So in respect to that, it's going to take us a good 6 to 12 months, I think, to recruit a full and stable team from on which to build. And at the same time, we've got to procure this contract.
I think we accept that.
I think we need a good 12 months, clear 12 months, to get that resource in place, and from there we can build a program. And as to how long it'll take us to sort out, okay, what's practical to insource, and then how do we go about that? I don't really want to speculate at the moment, but part of the reason why the program is so tight is we took a large amount of time out, as it were, previously to start reviewing the sort of elements of service that would suit insourcing, and so we do have a little bit of a head start on that once we've got the people in post. So yes, I do look forward to being able to talk about programs and activities on a chart, and progress along that as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any other members who wish to say anything? ask anything? Okay, then if we can look at the recommendations which are set out at 3 in the reports. And we're basically asked to authorise the issue of the tenders as set out in 3.1 and note the other activity which just been discussed in terms of mixed economy and insourcing, etc. So 3.1 and 3.2. So can we, let's see, agree 3.1, isn't it, and note 3.2? Is that correct?
Agreed.
Thank you very
Agreed and
much.
noted, Chair.
Thank you very much. So item 12, there's no items. 13, dates of Cabinet Procurement Committee for the remainder of the year. I think these are set out.
Chair, on the
So
agenda.
we're happy with that. That's set out on the agenda.
Agreed.
Note that.
Noted, Chair.
So exclusion of the press and public. Do we need to? I think we can actually do that. I mean, we referred to one of the items in the exempt agenda, but we haven't actually sort of discussed it. So, if members are going to have any questions on that, are they?
No.
So we don't actually need to
No, we
exclude
don't
public.
need to.
Okay. We do because we've got some.
No, they're
No, we're all right.
Chair, so,
Dealt with
yeah,
everything.
concluded.
So that is. I think we've concluded the business of the meeting. So thank you all very much indeed.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes, Chair.
Thank you.
In the live stream.